Coming to you straight from Fremont, California, this is the Fremont Podcast, dedicated to telling the stories of the past and present of the people and places of the city of Fremont, one conversation at a time. Now, here's your host, Ricky B.
Hello, Fremont. You're listening to episode number 35 of the Fremont Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me this week and each week. Thank you for listening to these conversations and following and being a part of this podcast. If you've listened to the episodes the last few weeks, you'll know that we have a new sponsor, Dale Hardware, and even right now, as this episode airs live on August 5th, there are events at Dale Hardware celebrating their new destination station of Milwaukee Tools, and the big event is happening on August 6th, Saturday, and you will not want to miss it. So if you are listening to this podcast when it goes live, make your way over to Dale Hardware tomorrow, Saturday, August 6th, and join in the festivities. There are activities for everyone. Now, here's a word from another sponsor.
Gary Williams here. Some friends of mine are making a difference in the community, and one of the ways they're doing that is helping to sponsor this podcast. Petroselli Homes Realty Group is a boutique brokerage service located in downtown Niles. John and Jennifer Petroselli have had the honor of helping countless buyers and sellers make effective real estate decisions to plant their roots, raise their families, expand their wealth, or simply relax and retire. So if what I've described is what you might be looking for in a realtor, I suggest getting in touch with Petroselli Homes on Niles Boulevard in downtown Niles.
The Fremont Podcast is really proud of the sponsors and partners that we have. Petroselli Homes is rooted in the Fremont community, and Dale Hardware has been here from the time Fremont became a city. One of the employees that you will find at Dale Hardware has been working for Dale for almost 50 years, and he was born right here in the Fremont community where his parents also lived. Today's conversation is with him, Ernie. You'll want to stick around for this one. Well, I'm excited about the conversation I'm about to have today with Ernie. Ernie is he's an employee of Dale Hardware, and if you've been listening to the podcast the last few episodes, you have heard that Dale Hardware is one of our sponsors, and so I'm really excited to be able to have them as a sponsor, that they are supporting the work that I'm doing here with the podcast. But now I'm really excited today to have Ernie, who is working at Dale Hardware with me. And he's not just a normal employee. I think he's been here. I think he's the employee that's been here the longest of anybody right now. Is that right, Ernie?
That's correct.
All right. So Ernie is with me. And before we get into Dale Hardware and your employment here and working and all that, tell me a little bit about your experience in Fremont. I think you were born and raised here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I grew up in the Niles district.
Okay.
And lived there for about 12 years, and then we moved into the Fremont or Centerville district as well. My parents changed jobs and so forth, and we bought a home here. So
okay. Now what year was that? Because I know that Fremont became an official city was it 1956. At what point was it that you were living in Niles, or when were you?
Okay, I was born in 1954.
Okay, so just before it became a city.
Yes, and we moved here in 1966.
Okay, very good. Now, did your parents live here long?
Yes, actually, they lived in the Niles area for quite a few years.
Okay, wow, that's cool. And if you don't mind me asking, what kind of work did your dad do, or your parents did when they were here?
My dad worked for Pacific Steel out of Union City, and he migrated from Mexico and went to work there. Wow. We lived on a street that was actually part of a lot of families that worked for the railroad. So we worked. So we lived on a street there where everyone knew each other.
Wow.
All the kids played together. We were not allowed to venture away from our street.
Huh.
So we never really saw
Was that just
this side.
was that just a concern of your parents, or was there a legitimate concern in Niles?
It was mainly probably just them.
Yeah.
Being very protective. So we used to hang around Alameda Creek.
Okay.
And we did our fishing and boating and so forth. We actually tried to build boats and kind of thing that you would see in movies and so forth, where kids would kind of create something and just kind of go with it.
That's awesome.
No plan, but
just make it happen.
We made it work. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so that interests me too, then, because Alameda Creek seems to be quite dried up, and I know we've been in drought for a few years.
Yes.
So back then, was there a lot more water?
Back then, a lot more water, a lot of trout, a lot of tules. So it was pretty wild. And you just went out there and ventured.
Wow.
And just created whatever. But to us, it was just what we did. So,
yeah. That sounds awesome. That
pretty
sounds like
simple life. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a kid's paradise. I actually did similar things when I was growing up. I used to spend my summers working on my grandparents' farm in Michigan, and they had about 120 acres. And they had a couple ponds, and when you were talking about building boats or rafts, I remember one time my cousin and I decided that we were going to build a raft, and we wanted to float it out on the pond. And the tree that we cut down to start it was probably, I don't know, at least 12 inches around, and we were just kids.
Yeah.
Once that thing fell down, we couldn't move it. So then we decided, instead of building a raft, we just built a bridge. Okay. And we just left it laying where it was across the creek.
Yeah. We used to try building boats. None of us could swim a lick. And we would go out in that creek and so forth, and that boat would fall apart, and you're hanging on for dear life. But it was just a way of life.
Okay.
And to us, we thought it was normal.
Yeah. So when did you leave Niles again?
I left Niles in 1966, I believe it was.
Okay. And then what part of Fremont did you move to at that point?
Into the Centerville area. Mm-hmm. It's called Cabrillo Park. And we lived there. I lived there probably till 1972.
Wow. Wow. So apart from just exploring Alameda Creek and building boats and stuff, do you have any other favorite memories of while you were living here in Fremont that you can look back on?
Well, quite a few related to Niles and so forth. As I mentioned before, we weren't allowed to venture away, from our street, but I just had a thing about railroad tracks, and I used to follow the tracks and get lost. And I ended up one time at the train station here, and had no idea. To me, it was a huge city. Again, Niles is a very small community, and I ventured out here, and all I knew was that when it got dark was to follow the tracks back. I knew I was going to be in trouble, and sure enough, I was. But that's just something that we did all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really, really cool. So I think that if you were building boats when you were a kid and trying to build forts or whatever else that you were doing, why not get a job at a hardware store, right? Why not why not work at a place where you can get tools and materials and whatever else you need? So when did you start working at Dale Hardware?
I started working here in 1973.
Wow.
I was a student at the local JC here, and needed a job. I just moved out, needed an apartment. I wanted to buy a car.
Uh-huh.
And one of the counselors at the college recommended I stop by a hardware store, and I didn't know what a hardware store was. And she said, well, it's nearby where you're planning on living, which was right down the street. So I stopped by, and I spoke to a gentleman named Ralph Promise, and he asked me when I could start. I could start today, and I started off sweeping floors.
Wow. Wow. So you were in college then. You were about 18, 19 years old?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Wow. So if you don't mind me asking this too, can you tell me, or do you remember about how much was the rent for your apartment that you were going to be moving into?
It was $125 a month, and which I thought was a lot back then.
Oh, yeah.
Because, income back then wasn't great either. So,
yeah.
But it was just something that I had to do. I've always worked. So I didn't, so I just decided to try it.
You can make it happen. Yeah. So if your rent was $125 a month, how much were you making when you started out here?
Oh, I'm not sure if I should even say that.
I remember back, at least, I mean, obviously was not alive back in the 60s, but I remember thinking about my dad when we moved, when I think I was 9 or 10 years old. And I think my dad was making something like $5 an hour or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but I just thought that was a lot of money.
I can tell you it's less than that.
Less than that, yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So, so you started working here at about 18 or 19 years old.
Correct.
And started sweeping floors. What are some of your early memories of working at Dale Hardware? What are some of the special times, or what did you learn right away, or what were some of the mistakes you made?
Well, I think as far as coming in, it was a very small group, and probably a group of maybe 15 to 20 people throughout the whole store.
Was it in this location, or where was it?
No, it was actually across the street. There was a little retail area that was called Center Square.
Okay.
And they had just moved from a place called Comet Auto, which is a little small auto store. Dale Hardware occupied that space, little small place. And they had just moved into a vacated Lucky store that was in the same shopping center, but right on the corner, right on the boulevard.
Okay.
And I started there about a year after that opened up.
Awesome. Sorry, I interrupted your
That's right.
stories of when you first started. What were some of the things that you remember of what it was like when you first started here?
Well, it was very strange. It was something that I wasn't accustomed to at all. I knew how to work. I knew I liked to work. And I was always raised to do what had to be done and to do what you were told to do. Mm-hmm. So piddling with tools and so forth, it wasn't real foreign to me, because as a child, my grandfather had a lot of tools, and I used to go through his toolbox all the time. While all the kids were out playing in the street, I used to go in the garage and take his wooden toolbox out and lay everything out on the floor and go through those and put them neatly back in the box and go through his garden tools. Whenever I worked on my grandparents' house, I had to use my grandfather's tools. I didn't want to bring my own. I wanted to use his tools. And interesting enough, later on in life, after he had passed away, they were going to sell these tools. And they called me over to the house, and I thought they wanted me just to help to clear the garage. And my family, my aunts and uncles and mother, said, well, no, we want you to take the tools that you want and so forth. I go, well, no, my uncles should get these tools. And they said, no, we want you to have these tools. Oh, wow. To this day, I still have all those tools. And I have them forever. So my son's aware of it. When it's time, he'll get the tools as well. And but it's something that I've always cherished.
That's really cool. Yeah. Very cool. So when you got to Dale, then you were familiar with at least seeing some of the tools.
Yes.
And you probably had used them and didn't really know the names for them or anything like that. Or maybe knew some of them, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I bet that was a joy to you to be working with tools, to be able to sell tools and stuff. Yeah.
We were required to work the entire store. And we still do that today. Okay. When you have a customer, you walk them to where they need to get, and you help them pick out the tools and so forth. And back then, you would even take the product up to the registers. And in some cases, you would be the person who checked them out. Okay. Wow. So you worked from the minute they walked in the store, and you greeted them, helped them with the tools, take them to the register, and you ring them out as well. Oh, wow. So that to me was interesting, because that customer service, where I wasn't real familiar with it, I knew it was something special.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I think Dale is known for, as I talk to people around the community, is Dale is known for that specialty help, that being able to find customers who are in need of help and being able to walk them through the process of finding what they need. And then, so that it's kind of in the DNA of the store. Back then it was, you would even take them all the way to the register and check them out yourself.
Correct.
So that's really, really great. And I think that's an important quality that I think that has been lost over time in many establishments, is that just that personal, care of the customer when they come into the
Right.
store.
Right, and we still use that same policy and so forth. But back then it was so unique. Okay, because that is what
Really?
set us apart from we didn't have the Home Depots in, Orchard Supplies or Lowe's.
Yeah.
We were pretty much the only guys in town, but that type of work habits was always instilled in us, and we were told just to pass on all the information. So.
Yeah. Wow. So along with that, one of the things that I think that you have a responsibility for, and one of the things that you hope that other customers or other employees of the store have is the knowledge and the ability to be able to help customers with their projects, whatever they might be doing. So I'm just wondering for you. You went from, you went to you were in college when you got your job here. You didn't really have much experience in the trades apart from just the messing around that you did as a kid.
Right.
Where did you? And I've heard from people that the whole store and you know how to help people with almost anything. So you've got plumbing, electrical, gardening. You've got all these things. Where did you learn? Your tricks of the trade. Where did you learn those things?
Well, a lot of it came from my father. Okay, he used to like working on TVs and so forth, and the old TVs. He would take them apart. If there was a problem with it, he would fix it. He was always piddling with tools. If he had to lay brick, he laid his own brick. He had to pour concrete. We did the digging. We helped him mix it, and we learned how to use those tools. And we were learning without even knowing it. And then with my grandfather was always working with tools as well. My uncles like to work with tools. One of my uncles, his tool shed is the cleanest tool shed you've ever seen. Everything is well placed. When I work in his house, I use some of his tools, but I've learned to use my own because he likes things a certain way. But it's just totally, it's just so impressive as how he has everything stationed.
Yeah.
But so family members taught me a lot. And then I was lucky enough to come here, and we had mentors. The GM back there, Ralph Promise, was the one who hired most of us. Most of the people you saw that worked here 25, 30 plus years were hired by Ralph. And Ralph had a rule. He says, if you want to learn, you get here before hours or after hours, and I'll teach you. And so it was up to the individual if they wanted to learn to show up. And he was always here.
That's awesome.
And he was probably the best mentor I could have.
Wow.
Coming in here, especially at that age.
Totally.
You're doing different things. Your mind isn't quite straight yet, so forth. He had a way of just making things make sense and calming you down. But he was the best teacher I could imagine.
Wow, that's really cool. I love that because I know for me one of the things that I appreciate is the one-on-one relationship that you have with somebody when you're trying to help them out with something, or when they're trying to work through a problem. I love being able to come alongside other people and being able to see them succeed at whatever it is that they're trying to do.
Yeah. And he had and Ralph had a pretty simple rule. He says if you're going to learn something, you use it and you pass it along. He goes, just make sure that you pass all the information.
Wow.
And with all the gentlemen and women we had here who worked a lot of years, we had a lot of guys who taught very well. And the knowledge we had was amazing.
That's awesome.
Every department had a specialist. And there were guys here that were far more knowledgeable than I am. And I learned from them as well.
That's awesome. Wow. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, and there's still more to come, so hang around. Before we get to that part of the conversation, though, I want to just tell you a little bit more about Dale Hardware. As I said from the beginning, there is a big event going on the weekend of August 4th through the 6th. Dale has the largest display of Milwaukee tools in any retail establishment in the U.S., and they're having their grand opening on August 4th through the 6th. If you can't make it out, then just try to get into the store whenever you can and check out what they have there. It's pretty awesome. But I also want to tell you about something else that they've been doing. They have a new Dale Kids Club. If you have kids, or if you know kids that are that love doing special activities, that love being involved in new things, learning new things, then this is something that they're going to want to take part in. The Dale Kids Club. Drop into Dale Hardware, ask them how they can become a part of the Dale Kids Club, and I know that they'll love to talk to you about that. Now, back to our conversation. So you guys the store was across the street from where we are now.
Correct.
And then at what point did it transition over to where we are now in Thornton?
Well, we outgrew the area and the building. It went from that little automotive store to a Lucky store. We didn't have a whole lot of storage space, so there was an Argus, a newspaper, which is still here.
Okay.
And they vacated their site, and we used that for a warehouse.
Okay.
We even had a railroad car in the back, and we, used that for storage as
wow.
well. So we kind of put things wherever it would fit, up in the attic as well. A lot of storage there. So we outgrew that. And then the owner, Bill Smith, decided that he needed a larger space. And he wanted something that was around 45,000 square feet. And they purchased the land here and built this building.
Wow, that's awesome. And then when was that? When was this built? Do you remember that?
I don't remember the actual year.
Okay.
Probably 85-ish or so.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think.
And then is the building as we see it now the way it was built at that time, or has it been expanded since then?
It has been renovated.
Okay.
Roughly 10, 12 years ago, it could be a little bit more. We added on to the building. So as you come into our store, you walk up to the paint department. That was the front of the building back in the day.
Okay.
And we added on to that building. We didn't shut down. I think we shut down for maybe half a day because the city made us, because they were knocking down the final parts of the front wall, and the building was starting to move. Okay, so we had to vacate the building, and we all stood out front and watched it go. And then we added on. The building pretty much doubled in size.
Wow!
Yeah, so we're currently about 100,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. What are some of the things that Dale has now that they sell or that they offer that maybe are new to the store? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, when you started working and as things started to progress, what was the main focus? Was it on tools? Was it on, the garden area? What were some of those things? And then what are some of the newer departments of Dale Hardware that exist now that maybe weren't there,
Well, I think the focus back then, as far as size-wise in departments, plumbing department was big. And with the electrical department being a close second.
Okay.
One of the things that Dale Hardware has always focused on was having all the product that relates to the community. Okay. With the homes that are built here, a lot of the homes are built in the 50s and so forth. We kept parts for those homes. So if someone was looking for a certain circuit breaker or a faucet part, they knew to go to Dale Hardware, because we carried parts geared towards the community and what their requirements were.
Yeah.
So that was very, very common.
And you said the paint department was at the front,
yes.
At least when you moved over to this.
Well, it was still front and center, okay, but that area there where that desk is was the front of the old building.
Oh, okay.
All right, so they added on to that.
Okay.
They expanded in the nursery. They built a lumber yard.
Okay.
Every department grew roughly, I'm going to say roughly 20-25%.
Wow.
So it was, that was like a joy to me, because it gave you the chance to really expand on what you had.
Yeah.
And to see to watch it grow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I used to work as an electrician full time for about 6 or 7 years. And I still do electrical projects on the side from time to time. And I was helping somebody recently in Fremont. I can't remember when it was or where it was, but I remember they had one of those old circuit breaker panels from back in the 50s.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, the breaker needed to be changed out because it had melted or something. And I just said I need to find a breaker to replace it. And I remember coming here and just being so amazed that you guys actually had the breaker in stock and that it was new and that, it would work for what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally understand what you're saying, being community conscious when it comes to understanding the homes, when they were built, what the needs are for the people that are working on their homes and
Sure.
that sort of thing. I see that here all over the place.
Sure.
I think that's really great.
Yeah, we usually had the part. If we didn't have the part, we would get it for you. So every effort was made to make sure that you got what you're looking for.
That's awesome. Do you have any like funny stories, or do you have anything that of your time working here, things that were just kind of like a little crazy or anything like that?
Well, back then, one thing I will say is that back then everyone knew each other.
Okay.
Everyone knew each other's families. We knew the kids. We knew the whole family, and we would all kind of hang out together. We had a lot of events, ball games, and everything else, and we made a point just to kind of stick together.
Okay. Now you're saying when everybody knew each other. You're talking about just employee families or employees, or are you talking about like the community, customers, and everything?
With the employees.
With the employees, okay.
Yeah, and one thing over the years is that you get to know a lot of the community. One thing that always amazes me is that I now meet people that were the grandson of someone who I helped way back when. And I've met their fathers, I've met their grandfathers and so forth. And they'll come in and say, well, you used to help my dad way back when. You did this and that for my dad or my grandfather. And he always told me, when your time comes, you go to Dale Hardware and don't go anywhere else.
That's awesome.
So those kind of stories, what I find the most rewarding was the fact that story kind of went through the different generations of the family and so forth. People still come to us and they're still loyal to us. And it works two ways, because Dale Hardware has been very loyal to the community as well.
Right. Yeah, I was just talking with somebody yesterday. Because we were just talking about some of the activities that Dale is going to be putting on in the next few months, the next couple of weeks even. And I was saying, I asked somebody who lives in Fremont, are you familiar with Dale Hardware? And they said, oh, my dad, he is a loyal shopper at Dale, and that is the place that he shops. He doesn't go anywhere else. And so I think you definitely have that sense of loyalty, but then you also have a sense of like that loyalty being passed down to the next generation, at least being impressed on the next generation.
Right.
And I think that's really great. So how many years have you been working here now?
I'm on my 49th year.
49th year. Wow. That's great. And is there working here now? I know it's a completely different experience in a completely different place even than what it was when you first started working here. What are some of the things that that you are proud of that Dale has been able to maybe help or the presence of the what are some of the things that you're proud of that Dale has done in the community that is because it's present here now over the years? What are some of the things that you look at and remember that you're proud of?
Well, I would say as far as the company's generosity, they've always been very committed and very loyal, to the community itself. And they've reached out and so forth, and they've supported so many organizations. Just being aware of that and seeing it, and then seeing the response from the community, just all the things you hear from people saying, gosh, I hope you guys never change and so forth. They're so thankful to come here and get the service that they get here, and they're very thankful for the kind of people who we bring in here. The people that we hire are very loyal and very committed, and I'm seeing it all coming back again. Okay, the group that I came with that stayed for many years, you probably won't see that anymore. Everyone moves on, but the people that we're bringing in are good young people. So I never thought I'd be saying that, because I was one of those young people way back when. And now that I get a chance to kind of sit back and watch it, and see it. All the new leaders that we're developing here. Get it.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're very, very committed. So those are the kind of things I'm real proud of, and also the fact that everyone is willing to teach. If someone comes to another associate and asks a question, they're never told no. That associate is always willing to reach out and help them, because all they're doing is passing on the information that they learned from someone, and they realize how difficult it could be to work in retail, especially in a hardware store of this size. But just to see all that information passed along makes it rewarding to me.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. And I think that everything that you've said about Dale and the things that you're proud of are things that I've experienced, so that I've seen as well. I've only lived in Fremont for 8 years, and so I definitely have not been around it for as long as you have, or so many other people that are listening. But in the time that I've been here, I've certainly felt so many of the things that you said there. And I think it's great. I think it's, one of the things that I like about stores in general, like a brick and mortar store, but then also a store like this, is it just reminds us that we are human and that we live in a human community. We interact with each other, we learn from one another, we help each other, and those sorts of things. And I think those are things that sometimes are lost. Yeah. We miss out on those things. But I love being able to come to a place where that's part of the history and the DNA of the company.
Yeah, there is nothing more rewarding than helping someone fix something or to create something.
Yeah.
And when someone comes in, they're working on a project and they don't know how to start it or how to finish it, and be able to walk them through it, and just to see their reaction to it. I mean, because you just don't see a lot of that anymore, and. Getting into all the different departments, that is what I enjoy the most. I enjoy, working with people. I love the interaction. It's still a challenge to me.
Sure.
I still, have a passion for it. And most of the people we have here have that passion. And I'm kind of seeing what we went through years ago, and it's I'm kind of reliving it again. So
that's awesome. So one last question here,
Sure.
Wrapping up. So are we gonna see you here for a full 50 years at Dale, or this is not going to be it, right? With
I
49?
get asked that a lot. I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I'm actually close to about 49 and a half now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 48 and a half.
48 and a half, so it'll be close to 49.
So next spring will be 449.
Wow.
So, yeah, so we'll see. I still enjoy it, and so far I still enjoy the people.
Yeah.
It's a great place to work for. I've seen all the changes, and quite a few people come through here.
Yeah.
We've had a great group of people come through here, and so forth. And
wow.
The hardest part is seeing them leave and moving on to something else. But as I mentioned before, the new group coming through here, I think is going to be fine.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Ernie, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Sitting down and talking with me. I loved hearing from you, and it's made me want to have lived here myself in those years and growing up, because so many things that you talked about as doing as a child were things that I love to do as well. And I certainly love a good hardware store, and I'm really proud to be a part of, or in partnership with Dale, and being able to be here and have it in our community. So thank you for your time.
Well,
thank you for your service for so many years. It's
Thank
amazing.
you. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Fremont Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you listen so you don't miss an episode. And if you're so inclined, leave a kind review so that others can find the podcast. To stay connected with us, you can find links to our social media and other content at thefremontpodcast.com. This episode was hosted, edited, and produced by Ricky B. Music provided through Soundstripe.com. I'm Gary Williams. Join us next week on the Fremont Podcast.
Muggins Media.